And it's been about 24 hours. And yep, it dried a lot darker. Like I said, there's a little bit of Minwax polyurethane on this. It's a quick dry that I like to use when I do YUPOs. Now, I actually spray these whether I like them or not. Whether they're complete crap or they're beautiful, I spray them. Once they're dry, or at least dry to the touch, I'll go outside and spray them with this and then let it sit for another several hours. I do that because, well, first, I don't do it with a gloss, I do it with a satin. Because while I want to bring the colors back out with the gloss, I also want to be able to see some of the details in this to decide how I want to use it. So, good stuff. This is also, there's at least one can, I think, of the satin in my art and studio supply list on my website. So that link is down below. So that's on there. The YUPO's on there. Everything's on there. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, at the end of all this, is I was going to, come back like I always do with a finished picture of the final version, but I didn't think that was good enough for this one because while this one is not brilliant, I mean, there's some neat stuff in it. It's not overall gorgeous. There's an area here that I screwed up pretty bad by putting blotches in it, and it just dried like a really bad project. There's some fun stuff going on over here, but not enough to make a centerpiece of any kind, I don't think. But I still have a use for this whole thing, even in pieces. One good example is I did a pour last week and I had some little pieces of YUPO on the side, and this is what I did with the extras. And remember I was showing those skewers? I used those skewers in here to make these patterns. There's some really neat stuff going on in this one. So that one's going to be matted and framed. And I have a little stamp. It says Original Artwork, Kim McDonald Studios, Pacific Northwest, USA. Just a little personal. I will initial that and probably sign it before I put it in the mat and frame. And that's kind of along the lines of where I'm going with this. There's a couple of pieces in here that I can see going into maybe a 4x4 frame. The rest, though, I'm still going to use and salvage, including this tape. There's some really neat design and very distinct design in this tape, which obviously I can't use in a framed matted picture, but I have other projects I can use that for. Here's some more examples. These are basically skins on YUPO. Here's skins on plastic. And this is the same pour from this. This was the leftovers. So that shows you that one. And you can let that dry. I let it dry right on the plastic. I just cut it out and set it aside until it's totally dry. And this one is not, by the way, totally dry, but it'll start to come off of this heavy plastic pretty well. And you'll see how it starts to split off. You mean like the front, you mean like the back. The front usually looks a lot prettier, but lately I've had some back sides that look really neat. When this dries, I've got freezer paper here. And it's got the dry side and it's got the waxy side. So I fold it and I put skins in here. That way they're not going to stick to anything, and I can store them flat until I want to use them, cut them up, or whatever. Here's another good example of a YUPO pour that I did that's not beautiful, but it's going to be cut up into strips for a project coming up. Just because cut smaller, it might look cool as some small like rock tiles, so I've got plans for that. Here's another one from, oh actually let's show you this one. This is a YUPO, the pour that I did just the other day. I don't hate it, but it's not brilliant either. And I have a really good idea for a future video project with this, so it's going to be coming up in the next video or two. You're going to see this again. After I poured this one, I had leftovers. These actually fell down the side of the plastic on the table, so I just cut off the whole piece and let it dry. I may not be able to use this whole thing because you can see through some of it. Kind of get a better idea that way. Might only be able to use this piece or maybe this. It's so thin that I might not be able to take it off the plastic, but I can cut it right on the plastic and still reuse it, because a lot of these future projects that I'm going to be using the smaller pieces for are going to have resin on them, so it won't matter. So that leads us to where we're at with the piece we did last night. And that's this one right here. California Dreamin'. This is very, very Cali. So what I would normally do, I would take my straight edge ruler, I would figure out some areas that look good to me and cut them, or the areas that I really don't want, to figure out where they're going to go. But this still is slightly tacky, so I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to use the scissors. But first I'm going to free this tape up. Okay, so some of this tape I like too. So I'm going to be as careful as I can. Well, it's still, gosh, it's still wet enough that it's not tearing very well. You want to pull your tape like this you start to pull it up like I did, it'll start to pull. And that's what happened there. But I still got some tape out of this that I think I can use. Kind of like those people that open a Christmas present really slow and they just carefully take the tape off the package when you just want to grab it out of their hands and rip it. But yeah, this kind of art takes a little patience. So while I'm not happy with this part, I like this part, but it doesn't go with the rest of it, so I'm going to put a line down this. Like I said, I will still use these pieces in something else, even if they're cut into small pieces. Where do I want to cut this? Right here. And yes, we're cutting right through paint and varnish and everything. That's another reason why I'm falling in love with YUPO. Thank you again, Anne-Marie Ritterhoff. See? So we got stuff happening here, kind of like this. You could cut this little piece and put it in a 4-inch frame, which I think I might do with that one, because that's a nice one. Or you could put it in a 5x7, or actually this would be more like a 3x5. But I keep my eyes out for really good frame deals when it comes to these. I have an idea of what I want to do with this piece, but not 100% yet. So this would be the biggest piece I got out of it. And if I can frame that, I'll do it. If I can't, it'll be part of another project. But I love the fact that with YUPO, there's so many side things that you can do with the skins or with the YUPO pours themselves. From decoupaging to matted framed art, it's just so versatile that I'm really, really loving this because there's not a lot of waste. The only waste I'll probably have at the end of this deal is this white piece that I cut off. Or it'll just be behind a mat somewhere, but there you have it. So I'll leave you with a little gander of what we did with these.